guys, we are here for another BookTube, so going right into it. I finished Black Hearts. I was really sad I don't have the second book yet, but that was my fault. I really enjoyed it, so I definitely recommend Black Hearts. It was really good. And then after I finished Black Hearts, I decided to start a personal book marathon, so I am reading all of Aprilynne Pike's books right now. In these last 2 weeks, I completed her Wing series. So first off, the covers. I read the UK editions, and I'm gonna show them with the US covers. That way, you kind of know. So this is the first book, which is Wings. I love all the covers actually. I just really like the UK covers, and I hadn't read the UK version. Spells. This is actually my favorite of the UK covers, I think. Probably because it's green. And then we have the third book, which in the US is called Illusions. And in the UK they changed it to Wild. Aprilynne doesn't remember why, but they did. But it's still the same book. And then we have the fourth and technical last book, which is Destined. And the reason I say it's the technical last book is because a year or two ago, Aprilynne did write and release Arabesque, which is still in the Wings universe, but it's not the same main character as the Wings series. So it's technically Wings 5, but at the same time it's not. So, general talk about this book. Really good. I love it. It's about fairies, if you can't tell. I would say this book is really good for people who are maybe just getting into YA. But even if you've been reading YA forever and maybe you want something that's not A Court of Thorn and Roses with all the sexy times, this would be good because it's very clean. Which, it feels weird to say, but it is. And for me, part of the reason I love Aprilynne is she writes really good love triangles. And in this book, it's between the main character, Laurel, David, who is human, and Tammany, who is a fairy. And I root for the supernatural always, so of course I root for Tam over David. I'll kind of go into a little bit about that in my spoiler talk. So yeah. The really good book. I always support Aprilynne since she is a local author here. But I didn't know she was local when I was reading the Wing series because I'm pretty sure with Wings it even says in the thing she was living in Utah. So at the time Wing came out, she was living in Utah, and then she moved to Arizona later. So I just really enjoyed it. And going into spoilers. So, again, the series is about a girl named Laurel, and Laurel discovers she is a fairy. And the way she discovers this is, first she gets this bump on her back, which she's like, oh, maybe it's my first zit ever, because I've never had zits. But the bump kind of keeps growing, and she's kind of freaking out. And she finally decides she'll tell her parents about it if it's not gone by, I think it was Monday. And over the weekend, it vanished, and it turned into a flower growing out of her back. And so she's completely freaked out. She goes to her friend David, who she just met recently because she just started going to real school versus homeschooling. Not real school, public school, sorry. Homeschooling is real too. And she has David look at a clipping she took of the flower from her back before she went over. And of course, at this point, she has all the petals bound around her waist, so no one realizes she has a flower out of her back. And David looks at it and he's all, well, it's a plant. It's a growing, flowering plant. And she's all, are you serious? Because truth time, it's out of my back. And so she goes to her former home and she meets Tammany, who basically tells her, well, you're a plant. You're not human. You are a highly advanced plant. And on top of that, you're a fairy. So am I. And she, like, completely freaks out. So her and David kind of do a few experiments, and she is a plant. She is, like, she breathes carbon dioxide, exhales oxygen. Instead of blood, she has sap. She has no heartbeat. She actually doesn't even need to breathe. Like they do an experiment, David holds his breath for like under a minute, and she holds her breath for like 7 minutes, and he's even like, is that as long as you could hold it? And she's all, well, it's as long as I wanted to, because it was getting uncomfortable. And so throughout the book, her and David get together. I'm not happy because it's obvious Tam loves her too, and I want Tam to win. And the fairies' biggest enemy are trolls, and in this book there's a troll who's trying to get their property where they used to live because it actually protects the gate to Avalon, which is Fairy World. And they are, of course, the fairies are very much against this because they want Laurel to actually inherit the land because she's a fairy. That's why they put her with her parents. Because essentially she's not a changeling. I believe the word they use is scion. And so throughout the whole book, it's basically this battle between the fairies, trolls, and you discover in the third book, Illusions, there is actually a exile fairy who has basically teamed up with the trolls, and she is wanting to get into Avalon to basically kill everyone because she is not happy with them. The third book, actually, since I've read this series so many times, I get really excited in the third book because Laurel finally breaks up with David, and she's kind of sort of with Tam, but not at the same time. And like the fourth book leads to an epic battle in Avalon between Clea, who is the exile fairy, and the fairies of Avalon. So the other really interesting thing about Aprilynne's fairies is they have their seasons. And so there are spring fairies who are kind of like the most populous of the fairies. They are kind of the ones who do like all the manual labor. They do everything. If you can't tell, my cat is here again. And then there are the summer fairies. And the spring fairies, their magic is called enticement, where basically they can entice humans, and kind of get them to do what they want. The summer fairies are flashier, and they are basically the entertainers of Avalon, and like they do a lot. Their magic is more illusions. Spring fairies are called ticers. Summer fairies are called sparklers. And then there's the fall fairies, which is what Laurel is, and they are more rare. They're not the rarest, but they're like the second most rare. And they are called mixers because what they do is they create the potions and everything for Avalon. And like even in the book, when Laurel finds this out, she's all, it just sounds like a bunch of chemistry. And it's like, no, what it is the fall fairies have like an intuition. And they are able to sense like plants. And at one point in the third book, when Laurel is trying to figure out what is going on because they don't know about the exile fairy really. And so Tam kisses her, but he bites his tongue when he does it, so she gets his sap, and she gets all these ideas in her head, which she figures out are what she could use Tam to make potions for, which is something that's forbidden to know. And so then the rarest of the fairies is the winter fairies, and they basically have control over all plant life, and so they're like the rulers of Avalon, and the exile fairy Clea is actually able to grow her own winter fairy, Yuki. And so it's just a really, really enjoyable series. Arabesque, again, it's in the Winged universe. Laurel and Tam are both in there because at this point they are together. They are having their own little fairy baby. But the story is really about Tam's niece, Rowan, who lost her parents in the battle in Avalon. And so it's her trying to figure out and she's a summer fairy, and she's trying to figure out where she fits in, and it's not in Avalon, so she comes to the human world. So again, really, really enjoyable series. The next BookTube will be more Aprilynne books because again, I'm reading them all before I go on to anything else. And then I am getting a Cushy Crate, which is my last box for a while, so I will be doing an unboxing for that sometime this week once it gets here, which should be either tomorrow, Monday, or on Tuesday. And that's it. Thank you so much, guys. Bye.